Well, hey there. Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, the rising cost of groceries. Most fingers point accusingly at the grocery stores, but should they be pointing elsewhere? And how long before we get a break from food inflation? The Barrie Colts embark on another playoff run this week. CAA has launched its 20th Worst Roads campaign, but it's not just about potholes and broken roads. We begin a monthly feature with Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall looking at the issues impacting the city and what's being done about them, and a musical fundraiser for RVH returns after a 2-year pandemic-induced hiatus. But first, while Fraud Prevention Month is wrapping up, police don't want you to let up in your diligence. Incidents of fraud rise exponentially from year to year, and the money lost is unthinkable. So Simcoe Police Detective Constable Jason Mudo says some frauds are simple, some are elaborate, but we fall for them nonetheless, and the digital world we live in is a huge part of the problem.
We have apps, social media. The one thing I've learned from a bunch of presentations that I've listened to, the apps and products that we use, a lot of them are free. And essentially they're free because you're the product. That marketing institution, company, whatever, wants your information, right? So as you put information out there, where those companies are collecting it and then selling it. So it's a different world because our information is out there, right?
And we're pretty free with that information, aren't we?
Exactly. Even as much as shopping online. Our Visa card is getting input into online places daily. So everything we're putting online right now. And that's a problem. That is a huge issue. It's just more accessible to fraudsters. So gone are the days where we go into your, break into your car or break into your house and try to get your identity. We don't even fraudsters or thieves don't even need to do that anymore. You just sit at home on your computer and you can find information from your living room.
So what do we need to do to protect ourselves then? I know we talk all the time, be careful when you're answering the phone. Make sure you double check if somebody's asking you for money. But so there are some people who are vulnerable to that kind of thing.
Basically, what you want to do is be paranoid. That's the number one thing. Always be paranoid. And number two, very simple, if it's too good to be true, it's likely a fraud. So be paranoid when somebody comes to your door. Be paranoid when you answer the phone. And if somebody's offering you something that just seems too good to be true, it's just too easy to make X amount of dollars out of whatever somebody is pitching to you, or the deal is too good, whether it's a phone or a product that's worth 1/10 of the cost, or some sort of investment that has an elaborate percentage of return. Again, likely a fraud. Not always a fraud, could be legitimate, but it very well could be a fraud. This may be a loaded question, what's the biggest fraud that you deal with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? I would say one of the biggest ones are investment frauds and romance scams. And lately, we've been dealing a lot with the grandparent scams, which I'm sure people are aware of. Those are the bigger ones. The investment scams is just typical random phone call, or even you're going on the internet, Google best GIC rates for 2023, and then you find yourself in some fake website. You put in your information to receive a phone call. Somebody calls you pretending to be a bank or some company that provides GICs, and then with a return that is higher than average, and then away they go. You send your money. Romance scams, very popular. You'd meet somebody online. That person either tells you that they have an issue, they're stuck at the border, they're doing an investment, they'd like you to participate, they want to teach you how to invest in crypto or whatnot. Again, going into the either investment route again, or that they need help somewhere, and then they need money, and off that goes. And then the grandparent scam is a big one that we're dealing with now. That's more the phone calls, where usually to an older individual, and the person would pretend to be a grandchild in trouble, asking for money right away. Again, stuck somewhere, border, whatnot, and they need help.
So what's the best advice for a grandparent in that case?
As simple as just hang up. That would be the simplest answer. I know it's not always easy. They are very creative. They can be very convincing and influential. But I would hang up. And again, just like every other fraud, confirm that whoever's calling you is the person that's calling you. Like, call your grandchildren, call your son or daughter or another member of the family and see if it's legitimate. Just like when somebody comes to the door, right? Door-to-door scam. Somebody who pretends to be Bell or a HVAC company. Confirm who these people are, and you confirm it. Don't let them confirm it. Somebody can come to the door, and I've dealt with many investigations where, you know, people will listen to the advice we give and be like, okay, I'm going to confirm it. But these people are creative. They'll be like, no problem. And they get their phone, call their friend, and then they pass it on to the person and be like, here, this is Bell, this is Rogers. They will confirm. And like I said, it goes back to being paranoid. Be paranoid.
Is it possible to overprotect ourselves? I'm thinking now in terms of security software and for the internet, and I'm always getting another nudge from my provider of that. Say, well, you can step up your security. Oh, you've got all these threats here, and we can help you deal with that. You keep buying and buying or financing that. Can you go too far?
No, not really too far, because these fraudsters are getting, just as we're getting more advanced with technology, so are the fraudsters. On a personal level, you obviously know on your computer, have your virus scans updated. And also you can purchase through Equifax or TransUnion what's called credit monitoring. That's a good service that even I have. It's between, I believe, $20 to $30 a month. If you ever get your identity compromised, what happens is somebody will use your identity at some company, let's say a bank or a dealership. As soon as that, for example, bank or dealership do a credit check on supposedly you get an immediate notification saying, hey, XYZ company has just did a credit check on you, and then you can look at that and determine whether that was you or not you, and then go from there. And then on a business level, be careful who you hire. That's another type of fraud, employment fraud. Be careful who you hire, do your background checks, hire a good bookkeeper, stay on top of your statements, and then also cybersecurity through your insurance company. Insurance companies offer now cybersecurity. They have different packages, so if you get a account takeover, hackers take over your whole software of your company, just like a car accident, we don't know what to do. It's a lot for one person to handle. You know, a car accident, somebody breaks into your house, takes all your stuff, you call your insurance company, they help you through it. It's no different with cybersecurity through your insurance. Call your insurance company, and they have brokers that will assist with getting your company back on track.
Like you said, we could sit here till next year going through one fraud after another.
There's a variety of them, but again, if you are paranoid and if you have the mindset that this is too good to be true, there's a problem, more than likely you'll be okay.
If you're looking for more information or suspect you've been the victim of a fraud, give police and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre a call. After breaking some team records during the regular season, the Barrie Colts have their sights set on the ultimate rewards, an OHL championship and a berth in the Memorial Cup. We get a playoff preview from Barrie 360's Will Conkin and Colts broadcaster and writer Gene Pereira.
Now that the regular season is behind us, looking forward, they'll face up against the 6th place Hamilton Bulldogs in the first round. Gene, let's dive into this matchup. First game is Thursday at Sadlin. What do the Colts need to do against this team to just set the tone?
Well, I think they got to come out and set a good tone early. I mean, obviously send a message. The last time these two teams met back, I think it was March 2nd, Hamilton won 7-5, and it wasn't classic Barrie Colts hockey. They played kind of a loose style and sloppy mistakes, and they ended up paying the price. And it just shows that this Hamilton team, which finished 2-2 against Barrie on the season, played well against Barrie throughout again. And obviously Hamilton's a different team. They're in a rebuild mode, really unloading. But, the combination of Nick Lardis and Sahil Panwar, who they picked up from Peterborough at the trade deadline. Panwar, who's an overager, finishing really strong his junior career. And then you got a guy like Lardis, who's one of the top prospects for the NHL draft this year. Just really kind of set the pace there. They were just absolutely on fire since coming to Peterborough. So they're going to be a handful and two guys that they got to watch. But this is a Hamilton team that you got to respect. I think Barrie's the better team, but again, I think there's an important lesson the Colts learned last time they faced them.
The Colts are dealing with some injuries. Do you see that having an impact?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a couple of key veterans, 3 veterans out. Cooper Matthews has missed the last couple of games. Connor Punnett was injured on Thursday after trying to deal a check in Sudbury, and he missed the last couple of games of the year. And as well, Tyler Savardi's been out ever since a game in North Bay, Sudbury, when he took a head check. And so, talking to Marty Williamson, he's hopeful that they'll be back for the start of the playoffs on Thursday, and he listed them as day-to-day. So obviously key figures. Punnett's a key defenseman back there, a physical force who's had really a standout, his best year in junior hockey. And, obviously Savard, again, another big body up front that, a power forward type that can score, but as well brings that physical style, makes the Colts harder to play against. So 2 physical guys, and then obviously Matthews, is a veteran depth winger that has played really well, was playing really well before he went out of the lineup.
And then now the biggest thing, what will these first 4 games look like? Wow, do you think the Colts will just go 4-0? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think I got this series in 5. Hamilton might steal a game. I think, Fullerton's been really solid for Barrie and net. I think Barrie has a much deeper team in this case, and much more experience than the Hamilton team that's really unloaded here. But again, I think Hamilton's going to really rely on that combination of Lardis and Panoir. And for Barrie, you really have to kind of shut them down in hopes that you can kind of keep Hamilton in check. And I think you're going to see a lot of pairing defensive types against certain players. If you look at Hamilton with Barrie, I think you can certainly expect import Russian Artem Grushnikov on the backhand, who's kind of a physical guy, logs a lot of minutes back there. He's going to be keeping an eye on probably Cardwell and Vierling in that top line. You expect them out there every shift. And then I think for Barrie, with Lardis and Panoir, it'll be interesting to see if they go with their top pairing, which has been Haché or Clark, or maybe they even change things up and put, a couple of defensive guys with each other, like a Haché and, a Cholach, or a Punnett and a Cholach together, and assign them that every time that those two, Lardis and Panner, are on the ice, you see those two. But that's the fun thing about playoffs, is you get to see the teams really kind of, and that's why home ice is so important. You get that last change, so you can bring out the guys who you want against the other team's top guys. And I think you'll see a lot of that matching as we go along here in the playoffs. Thanks again, Gene. Really appreciate the insight. Thanks, Will. Fun time of year, and looking forward to it. And get ready. Colts, pretty good hockey team, and should be able to go on a bit of a run here.
Potholes, uneven pavement, sidewalks in disrepair. Here's your chance to call them out. CAA has launched its annual Worst Road Survey. Barrie 360's Ian McLennan is buckled in with CAA's Teresa DeFelice.
When did this program actually start?
CAA Worst Roads campaign actually started about 20 years ago in 2003. So we're in our 20th year of highlighting infrastructure and bringing Ontarians along with us on this journey.
Now, when people participate, I mean, the focus is the Worst Roads campaign, and if you're behind the wheel and you're driving, yes, but the roads belong to everyone. And what I say by that is it's not just the drivers, but you also include pedestrians, the people who use e-scooters, and cyclists. It's all encompassing?
Absolutely. No matter how you get around this province, the Worst Roads campaign is for you. We actually ask for people to identify how they get around and what the reason is that they are nominating or voting on a road. And so last year, I would say the third biggest reason is lack of cycling infrastructure, and we're seeing pedestrian infrastructure issues come up. So, bad roads don't just affect drivers, they affect everybody from buses, two wheels, however it may be.
Now, when you get the pictures or the information, once it's collected, what do you do with that? How does CAA determine, what's the worst and what isn't?
So the campaign will close on April 21st, and then we'll spend some time taking a look at the roads that we're nominating, and getting some help, getting a little bit of an assessment as to why those roads were nominated. Sort of the back end is telling us, why people chose it, whether it was congestion or, like I said, lack of cycling and walking infrastructure, or the most common reason is potholes and bad road surface. Then a little bit later, after the campaign closes, we will release a top 10 list of worst roads in Ontario, as well as the top 5 from 10 various regions across the province. So for those roads that don't make it to the top of the list, we want to make sure that communities and people who are taking to the campaign can feel that their voices have been heard. Then our advocacy kicks in at CAA. I've got an advocacy team ready to go. We talk to municipalities. We also advocate to the provincial and federal levels of government around funding and the needs of municipalities. And we continue to work on trying to get these roads fixed.
And are you able to gauge if that information that's provided to a municipality or the province does make a difference? Do you think the survey does have clout?
I do think the survey has clout, and in our 20-year history, it's pretty amazing to see the results of the campaign. From mayors that come out at launch and try to encourage their communities to get attention to a road. Sometimes it's because they're trying to leverage the community's voice in order to obtain funding from the senior levels of government. We've seen local decision makers come out and announce fixes to roads. In fact, last year, the worst road in the province was in Hamilton, and shortly after we released that top 10 list, with that road being number 1, which wasn't supposed to be fixed for a couple of more years, that council came out and made a decision to get that road fixed starting 2022.
And that was Barton Street.
That's right, Barrie Street East in Hamilton.
And Bell Farm Road was on the central region, which covers Barrie, Orillia, Simcoe County in 2021. It was on the radar of the city of Barrie, and that road work did get done 2022. So no Bell Farm Road on, at least in 2023.
Exactly. And again, that was a huge project, a $13.8 million overhaul in order to get that project fixed, because it included not just the road that people see, but it included the ditches and stormwater sewers and water mains. So some of these roads do stay on the list for a few years. It depends on, again, how big that project is, from simple resurfacing to, redesigning, planning for growth, or because the infrastructure underneath the road needs to be addressed as well. Bad roads can hit people's personal pocketbooks, not just once but twice. Once being, they pay their taxes. Damage from poor roads can cost, pothole damage can cost anywhere from $300 to up to $6,000, depending on the make and model of a car. And in fact, in the most recent survey we did, we found 45% of our members in Ontario actually did get their vehicles damaged from poor road conditions, and 85% are paying out of pocket to fix those repairs versus filing a claim either with their insurance company or their local municipality. So it can be a little bit frustrating, and this is why I think people take to the campaign, or should take to the campaign if they haven't ever done so before.
And nothing in Barrie, Orillia, Simcoe County made the top 10 provincially last year, but bringing it home to Central Region, Lackley Street in Orillia was number 1, followed by the following Barrie Streets: Essa, Huronia, Duckworth, and Lockhart Road. If people want to join the campaign, how do they access the information?
Please go to CAAworstroads.com and have your voice heard there. And you have until April 21st to do so. Plus, we wanted to make it a little bit enticing for people. We have some, contests happening. You can win free gas for a year, as well as some other prizes.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. Been a busy first year for us. We've learned the Barrie Public Library loans out more than books, video games, and DVDs. It also has fishing rods, snowshoes, and more. We talked with an Aurelia girl about her efforts to save the monarch butterfly and found out how shipping containers are being used for transitional housing in Barrie. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any podcast distributor. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, the start of our regular monthly feature with Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall. Page's Passion Music Fest is back, and who should you really be blaming for the high cost of food? Now this.
It's cool to care.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Cool to Care is brought to you by the Peggy Hill team, keeping it real all the way to sold. Reach out now at peggyhill.com.
It's cool to care with 107.5 Cool FM.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Page's Passion Music Fest returns April 15th for the first time in 3 years. It's a fundraiser for cancer care at RVH. Our MJ getting the details from local musician and Page's Passion founder, Kat Shabbat.
For those who aren't familiar with it, it's got a really nice story behind it and how it was founded.
Yes, so this event really celebrates the life of a really vibrant and musical young girl who is from Barrie, Ontario, and lost her life at a very young age, 19 years old, to a rare form of cancer. She loved music, so we love to really keep her memory alive and just the spirit of community by hosting a rock concert in her honor every year to raise money for the RVH Cancer Care Unit.
And is this the first year that it's been able to come back since the pandemic, or how did that work? Like, how many years did we miss?
So it was 2 years that was missed. It's the 7th annual event, but it has been 10 years since it's started.
And so tell me a little bit about this year's festivities. What kind of special guests can people expect to see?
So we're very fortunate because we have a great list of sponsors on board this year and talent. So we have 2 headliners, Dylan Locke. He performed live on Facebook during the pandemic to raise money for charities. So you've probably seen his driveway concerts on his piano. Amazing voice. He sounds exactly like Bob Seger. He'll be there. There's a nice dance floor as well, so you'll be able to dance to his tunes. And alongside him, the Barrie's Live Music Show creators, the band The Straits, they'll also be rocking out for the cause. And they have a great selection of high energy music, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
All of these funds that go towards it, obviously going to some really great causes. Where is it going towards?
So it's always gone to the RVH Cancer Care Unit. What's really nice is that we're going to be backing up the RVH Keep Life Wild campaign this year too, since they're really trying to meet their fundraising goal to be able to expand care in the Barrie Hospital, but also the really exciting announcement of the Innisfil Hospital coming into fruition.
Tell me a little bit about the Keeping Life Wild, you said?
It's RVH's campaign. It's a rally cry to really get the community together to help fundraise for the cause, so the new hospital in Innisfil. And it's really just surrounded by the thought of keeping life wild in the sense of being able to keep doing what you love to do, whether it's go outside, be surrounded by nature. In this case, we love to promote music because it's healing qualities and also just community, and just like music helps everybody.
Is there a goal, a fundraising goal?
Yes, so we have high hopes to raise $15,000. We're really hoping to reach that goal this year.
While the live event is sold out, there will be a live stream. You can register for that and make a donation at pagespassion.gives. And a special thanks to Multitech Audio Visual, which will be broadcasting Page's Passion Music Fest to patients at RVH as well as to hospices in the region. The budget debated and passed. Barrie City Council has begun discussing the issues affecting the city. Mayor Alex Nuttall agreeing to drop by once a month to give us a play-by-play, if you will, to keep you in the loop. He's with our Ian McLennan.
We've just had 2 budgets in 7 days. Time for everybody to digest. So we'll bring it home close first, Ontario. What is in it that you see that some perks for Barrie, or maybe not so much?
Yeah, I think there was quite a lot in the Ontario provincial budget. If I look at it holistically, I was happy to see reduction in deficit, a fiscally responsible government budget from the government. And at the same time, there's some investments that I think are going to have a pretty positive effect locally here in terms of homelessness prevention, and housing. There was a 40% increase in funding for homelessness prevention. And, we expect to see a much higher number than that come to the city of Barrie. And obviously, with some of the issues we're facing downtown and across the city in terms of homelessness and in terms of crime, I think that that's a very positive piece.
In the area of the budget, and of course, talk about housing. 23,000 new home, or I believe is what the province has targeted for the city of Barrie. You've already made it very clear with the change to development charges. The city could be shortchanged about, is it 90 million over 5 years, or?
Yeah, it's somewhere around a 10% reduction through Bill 23. But there's, we still don't have the exact numbers. A lot of it, I think, depends on, first of all, the final regulations of 23. But second of all, it depends on what type of housing, where, and those types of things. So a lot of that will play out over time. It could be a little bit worse than 10%, but it could be better as well. So we have to wait and see. And in terms of housing as a whole around the city of Barrie, we've got about 13,000 approved units in the queue. There's another 6,000-ish, maybe 7,000 that are going through the process. We've actually had a ridiculous amount of proposals come in recently. I would guess that there's somewhere around another 4,000 or 5,000 that are being considered at the moment, and they're just going through the first paperwork. So, in terms of what the request is from the province for us, I believe that we're going to be well ahead of the goals and vision set by the province.
You've got lots on the plate in terms of potential new housing developments and whatever. People want to be here. Barrie is a place to be here, but can I afford to live here? That I know comes back to you, I'm sure. We see people pushing shopping carts. We know the need at the food bank continues to grow, but yet there is an affordable housing project opening in the Tiffin-Innisfil area this coming week. How do you balance that? When people say to you, we need more affordable housing, I know you just can't snap your fingers, but what is being done?
Yeah, so the housing on Tiffin and Innisfil is transitional housing, so it's not necessarily that traditional form of affordable housing where somebody can't afford their rent, but let's say they're earning money, or they're on Ontario Works or whatever it is. They need that place to live. It's a separate project. But in terms of around the city, we've had yesterday I was on an hour-long call trying to get one of the local projects moving forward that's designated for affordable housing. It's not easy. Construction costs have gone up significantly. The interest rates are obviously hurting the ability to borrow and repay. And so, the current situation, I think, is a little bit challenging for affordable housing to be built. The nice part that I see coming is that we've been working with the county, and the county is going to be building affordable housing on Rose Street, and that is funded. It is going to start, I believe, next year. That'll be a couple hundred units into the
and that's where the temporary homeless shelter was for the winter, right?
It's the former OPP station, and the land was purchased from the province in order to facilitate affordable housing. There was a temporary shelter put there this winter, and we helped fund the purchase of all of the capital assets needed in order to facilitate that.
Now, the county oversees the shelter system, the social services, and what have you, including affordable housing. Would it be more beneficial if the city had more say or control over that? Would that make a difference?
I think for me, I'm passionate about the subject. I grew up in government housing here. We went to the food bank when I was a kid. We've accessed the services that are required. Not all of them, but we access the services that are required here. And, it doesn't matter what we're doing in government. We need to measure its success. If you think about our rec centers? Are they meeting the needs of the community? We measure that, right? Our roads, the potholes, we're measuring that now. The same needs to be done with our social services. We need to measure the effect of the results they're having. If you think about it, there's a certain amount of people that are either without a place to live or unable to afford food, and so on and so forth. And then there's a certain amount of funding that's allocated through the city over to the county and throughout the county, quite frankly, to pay for these services. What are the results of the services that are being provided? We just don't have that information. And, my belief is that every dollar should be spent trying to help somebody move forward towards housing, towards a sustainable future. It doesn't mean everyone's going to be helped, and we shouldn't set the expectation that absolutely everybody's going to be able to be moved out of that situation. But there needs to be measurables that show the positive results that are happening from the $30 million we're sending to the county every year.
Now, on a needs basis and quality of life, you and others around the City Council table have also focused on youth. You're talking to the school boards about possibly opening up the schools an extended period to access, when the schools aren't operational. Maybe tell us a bit about what's being proposed and why it's being done.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. It's actually quite sad that we haven't been doing this prior to today. When you think about it, you've got all these assets around the city. You've got, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of schools around the city that sit empty in the evenings and weekends. Some of them are used for sure. I know Barrie Royals and others use them, but there's so many gymnasiums and classrooms and theaters and auditoriums that are sitting empty that could be used for the community benefit. And the province and the school board have recognized that, hey, our schools they're community hubs. They're not just a place where you go to learn. They're a center for these communities. And so I had approached the school board to see if we could get a deal going in terms of the community being able to access these spaces in underserviced and underprivileged areas. There's, if you think about the city of Barrie, there are places where there aren't rec centers, and there are very underprivileged folks that don't have cars, for instance, to be able to access either recreation or art services. And so the school board has jumped in. We're really excited to be partnering with them. We're going to come up with a pilot project over the next little while. Our public servants are working hard on this. And, if it goes well, it means that going forward, we can provide more services out in the community than we've traditionally been able to.
And finally, round one, OHL playoffs, Barrie, Hamilton. How many games, who wins? Careful with your answer.
I'm guessing 5 games, Barrie.
That's a political bet. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Food prices are high, but your anger may be aimed in the wrong direction. Sure, it's the price you pay at the checkout that sticks out in your mind, but the food chain is a lengthy one, and everyone in it wants a piece of the pie, as our Will Conkin found out from Sylvain Charlebois, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University.
Let's start with this. How many hands does our food pass through before it gets to retail? And how many times does, if it does at all, the price of a product rise from farm to manufacturer to grocer and whoever else might be in between?
Well, it depends on the vertical, depends on the product, depends on a lot of things. It depends whether or not the product is actually imported. And so, yeah, generally speaking, the main nodes are production, processing, distribution, and retail. And in between, of course, you have transportation, brokering, some agencies, up the food chain, of course, you'll have procurement. For every company, you basically have a network of companies supplying that one company, especially in processing, depending on the ingredients that you buy. So a lot of hands will be involved in the production, processing, and distribution of food products, generally speaking.
Each time it gets handed off, does the price within that change at all or get affected by whoever's hands it's in at that time?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And again, it depends of the ingredient, depends of the time of year as well. Some ingredients will be more impacted than others. And and of course the weather is a big one. Demand for certain products, labor disputes. There's energy costs. There's lots of things going on which could actually impact access and price points for ingredients anywhere across the supply chain.
It seems the grocery chains are bearing the brunt of the anger over food prices, but it seems like they can't be entirely to blame, like we were just kind of describing. Is there some opportunism taking place along the chain, or are the price increases legitimate, not looking to point out fingers, just trying to get a better understanding of what happens from point to point, from farm to table?
It is possible. It is possible, but it's always hard to measure greed anywhere across the supply chain, and so the grocery business is the easiest one to assess because all numbers are public, and that's when you look at financial statements. That's when you realize that the business. The grocery business is a business of low margins, incredibly low margins, and so you don't make a whole lot of money selling food, really. And that's why I've always found it fascinating to see so many Canadians believing that grocers are responsible for higher food inflation, when in actuality, my guess is that if there is abuse, it would be probably up the food chain in some verticals. Meat packing is probably one. But again, we don't have access to any sort of data there. I just see a very important distinction between farm gate prices and prices we see at the grocery store. And many times both don't make sense. Both together don't make sense.
Then maybe linked with that as well, there is the term of shrinkflation. It's been a buzzword lately, but it's been something that's been around for a while. Maybe explain it to us and how it fits in within this roadmap.
Yeah, so shrinkflation is basically a strategy that food manufacturers will use whenever inputs do cost more. So they don't want to necessarily lose market share. So they basically try to reduce quantities and keep the same price. And we saw that in most sections of the grocery store, to be honest. Even in the fresh section, we're seeing more and more cases of shrinkflation. The one thing that concerns me about shrinkflation is that sometimes you may actually end up reducing the quantity of a product so much that it becomes a snack, and that snack may actually be subject to a sales tax when before it wasn't. So, for example, a pack of granola bars, if you have 6 granola bars in a box, that's not a snack. It's basic groceries. But if you go down to 5, that becomes a snack, and then you actually have to pay a tax, and depending on where you are in the country, anywhere between 5 to 15%. So that would add up to the cost of food for anyone.
And then maybe connected with that as well, again, an article you released the other day discussed a recent survey that showed that 67% of Canadians found at least one mistake on their grocery receipt in the last year. That's quite high. That's
absolutely. I mean, a lot of people actually go to a grocery store and they don't require a copy of their receipts. I think it's a mistake. Every now and then there is a mistake on that receipt. And you want to actually verify and validate, so if you actually do that every time, you can actually save $50 to $75 for the entire year. So it's actually worthwhile for anyone to do that. And the survey also shows that grocers are very, very good at accommodating errors. They will compensate you. There is a scanner code of practice which suggests that if you were charged for a product and the price was not accurate, the grocer will owe you that product for free. So I think it's something that everyone should actually look at.
Yes, that's a good thing to know. And then looking forward for 2023, for the rest of the year, how do you see things going? Prices are high, but food inflation seems to be easing a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the CPI report today was reassuring. It shows that food inflation is easing. In fact, food inflation dropped 0.7%, which is the largest drop since April of 2021. And the gap between the food inflation and food inflation is actually now at 4.5%, which is the same as last month. So my guess is that things are actually going to be looking better. Will food prices drop? No. There is a baseline for cost now across the supply chain because of salaries, because of packaging costs, transportation costs. So I don't believe that food prices will drop. But at least with a food inflation rate of about 2%, things are much more predictable, manageable, and we can all have access to more deals as well.
Our thanks to Sylvain Charlebois for joining us this week and giving us some food for thought. And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, Will, and MJ for their input, to Matt Ladder for piecing it all together technically, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360 and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.